The foreclosure rate is up 115% from last year. And historically, what foreclosures have told us, some people are afraid that we are on the doorstep of the next great housing crisis. But what does the data really tell us? Stick around and find out. What's up, everybody? It's Jeff with Jeff West Properties, your host for the Conroe Living Channel, where we identify and celebrate everything that makes Conroe, Texas, one of the fastest growing cities in America. Okay, got that out of the way. This is what you're here for. You may have read in the headlines recently that foreclosures are on the rise. In fact, according to the year-end 2022 U.S. foreclosure market report, I think I said that right, we are up 115% from last year. That's a big number. It's triple digits. Now, if you've seen any of my other real estate education videos, you know that my goal is to present the data and bring context to both the data and the headlines. Extra! One thing we need to know about headlines is that fear grabs attention. The first priority for a content provider is to get you to click the link, to get you to watch the video. And nothing grabs people's attention like fear.
Are these facts scaring you, or are they not?
Sometimes those headlines are accurate, and other times they may be more of a bait and switch, or at the very least, a little bit of an exaggeration. Foreclosure is a pretty scary word. In a basic economics lesson of supply and demand, whenever you have a demand for something that is far greater than the supply, the value of that thing goes up. And whenever you have an oversupply of something without much demand, the value of that thing goes down. So as it pertains to the housing market, take, for example, the Great Recession of 2008 to 2012. As more and more people got foreclosed on, turned their keys into the bank, we saw a surplus of houses way greater than the demand, and it had a cascading effect where property values kept dropping. So how does that compare to where we are today? Well, yes, we are up 115% from last year, but to put that in context, let's take a look at last year. In 2021, there were 151,000 foreclosures, which is the least amount of foreclosures we've had in the history of the housing market.
That's nothing.
During the event that shall not be named, the government was doing whatever it could to stop an economic catastrophe, as well as all the governments in the world. And for the housing market, the CARES Act provided a way for something called forbearance, where lenders would allow people to not pay their mortgage for a certain amount of time, and those payments would get tacked on to the end of the loan. Now, forbearance was only supposed to last so long, and it's no longer here, so everybody has to be back to paying their mortgages.
It's time to pay up.
And you may think that those people who got help during the forbearance period may still have financial issues and have to hand the keys back into the bank. But the difference between then and now is back then, all those foreclosures, for the most part, came from people who never should have had a home in the first place.
Because I'm bad with money.
Lenders had ridiculous practices in that they were giving away loans to people who never should have had them. They had no business owning houses, and that came back to bite the housing market. Today's world, the lending practices are so much more strict that when people buy a home, they're well qualified to do so.
And we're responsible. I'm responsible.
Now, yes, there may be people who never recovered from the event that shall not be named. But the difference between then and now is if somebody couldn't afford their mortgage today, instead of turning the keys back over to the bank, they could just turn around and sell it. Because if they've owned it, even in the last few years, the value of that house has gone up so much that they more than likely can sell it and pocket money.
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
So looking at the number of foreclosures that are up 115% from last year during forbearance, it was historic lows. They had nowhere to go but up. So let's take a look at where the foreclosure rate is in the end of 2022 and how that compares to other years. As you can see from the chart, we're still 34% lower in foreclosure rate than we were in 2019. Was 2019 a housing crisis year? No, it was actually a very healthy year. So for those who are looking at the foreclosures of today and comparing them to the Great Recession of 2008 through 2012, look at how many foreclosures were going on during that time. Almost 3 million foreclosures in 1 year is definitely enough to affect the housing market. Where we are today, if you look historically at the other years, it's not going to have nearly the impact. Bill McBride, who is the author of Calculated Risk, said this last week. The bottom line is there will be an increase in foreclosures over the next year from the record low levels, but there will not be a huge wave of distressed sales as happened following the housing bubble. The distressed sales during the housing bust led to cascading price declines, and this will not happen this time. There are a lot of moving parts that affect the overall values of the housing market, and foreclosures is certainly one of them. But looking at the data in perspective, there's no real concern that today's foreclosure rate is going to have a negative impact on today's housing market. Hey, if you found value in this video, I would certainly appreciate you clicking that like button. Whenever you do that, it tells the YouTube algorithm to do the YouTube algorithm things, and it makes more people see the video. Also, if you'd like more information on one of the fastest growing cities in America, Conroe, Texas, make sure to subscribe to the Conroe Living Channel. On this channel, you'll get to see everything that makes my hometown one of the greatest places in the nation to live. And you might get to see me fight a bear. You might not, but you're going to have to watch the videos to see. Here's one.